Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dan Nessel Show. I'm your host, Dan Nessel. Today we're exploring a topic that I truly love, connections, human connections. In the process of making some human connections over the past year, we realized that so many of our human connections lack that key element, the human, because we're all through these screens. We're on LinkedIn, we're connecting by digital means, by words, by voice, but not in person. Mm-hmm. And it makes us feel like it's not necessarily human. Well, my guest today can kind of turn the tables on that a little bit and brings a very unique perspective to the meaning of connection, in addition to a whole lot of other things that we're probably going to get into. She's had a heck of a journey. She is a consultant, an author, a speaker, a TED talker, and she's all about the human connections. So please welcome to the show, Ginger Johnson. Ginger, it is really great to see you.
Thank you, Dan. It's a real treat to be here. Anytime we get to talk one-on-one about connection, I'm in. Thank you for the kind invite. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, we would never have gotten here if it wasn't for an interesting, I think, very COVID era. And by the way, we're recording this in February, and, this will probably air in about May, but we're still, and in May, we probably still will be in the middle of a whole lot of nonsense. Mm-hmm. And this last year has been, been a trial for everybody. But, in the middle of COVID, we thought of different ways to connect with people. And I reached out to Ginger as part of a LinkedIn outreach I was doing. And I said to her, in my LinkedIn outreach, I said, look, no pitch. I'm not here for what I say. There's no pitch, no lead generation, just want to connect. And that seemed to pique Ginger's interest. She comes back to me and just wanted to, know more. And, she asked me if I was collecting people.
Are you a collector, dude?
Am I a collector? And I said very honestly, in some ways, I was collecting, right? I was collecting in that I wanted to, have a group of like-minded and, very simpatico people on my side in my network. And, I'm glad I had that push and went out there and tried to find good people. I've since kind of pulled it back a lot because, you can only go so far. It's like, okay, I have enough I can handle. Otherwise, after a certain point, the connections are meaningless. But through that process, I met some amazing people, and Ginger included.
Well, thank you.
And and anyway, so through that LinkedIn correspondence, we are here today. And Ginger is the very first guest I've ever had on my show who I have not met once before the show. So it's going to be as much a surprise to me, ladies and gentlemen.
Ditto,
I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Well, thank you for your leap of faith. That's one of my favorite sayings is leap and the net will appear.
I like that.
Here we go. Yes.
So let's leap.
All right.
So yeah. So get into it, Ginger. What is it about connections that thrills you? What's the whole Ginger story?
Oh, what?
Or maybe those are multiple
tell the whole
questions.
Ginger story. Thank you for backpedaling on that one. No, we don't want that one. Well, you know what a super tanker is, Dan.
Yep.
Right? Our lives are super tankers. And we've all gone through different changes in our life. And about 4.5 years ago, I started realizing, well, I didn't start realizing. I came full circle of, okay, I know why I'm not doing my best work. I know why I'm waking up frustrated. I know why I'm waking up not as my best. And it was because the work I was doing was no longer doing it for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't the thing I wanted to do anymore. And I am not one to waste this one wild, precious life in work that doesn't make me hum, as Shonda Rhimes would call it. And so I started turning my super tanker. I knew what I didn't want to do, which that's a huge connection point. Alignment is an enormous connection point. If you are aligned with your purpose, your why, your meaning, like what you want your life to look like, what are you going to say on your deathbed? What's your obit going to say? Like, oh my God, Dan, woo, no stopping that guy. That's what theoretically we think we want. Whatever that is for you, it's not a contest, people. It's about being connection and aligned with who you are. And I was no longer aligned with what I was trying to accomplish. And so I started turning my super tanker. So I knew what it wasn't. turning the steering wheel, whatever that thing is on a super tanker, 1 degree at a time. And I gave myself the permission to be on the discovery mode.
Yeah.
And I'm good at that, Dan, because I've done it before. I like change. I'm good with change because to me, change is improvement. Change is evolution. It's going to happen anyway. Like my dear friend, Mike Sansoni, who wrote the introduction to my last book, The Connectivity Canon, said, change is coming anyway. Might as well open up your arms and give it a hug. So I started turning that super tanker and I'd pop up like a prairie dog on the deck and say, oh yeah, I think it's going to be this thing. It's going to be this thing. And then, not quite. And so think about it some more and keep turning the tanker. And I know I've got all kinds of metaphors going on here.
I'm a big fan of mixing metaphors.
Okay, good. I'll
Yeah.
shake one up for you. So I did that 3 or 4 or 5 times. And when I did that, here's a pro connecting tip. When you are in that flux mode, when you are in that state of, I'm not sure, something's got to change, tap into the people around you. You don't need a lot of them. Tap into a handful of people who will be honest, direct, and respectful, who see you not as you see yourself. I'm not talking about your friends. I'm not talking about the people who are going to say, oh, yes, that's the thing to do. I'm talking about the people who are like, I don't know about that. Or have you thought about this? And you want to ask the right people for the right input. So I did that a few times. And the last time I popped up, it was connection. And I remember the day, Dan. It was November of 17. I remember it because it came to me and I thought, oh, I know what it is. It's human connection. Oh, boom. Like the super tanker, then we just hit the double turbines or whatever power super tankers. And we started off and running. Now, the immediate next thought was, okay, so I know what it is. What is it to the world? And what am I going to teach? What is my impact in common parlance going to be? How am I going to affect the change that I want to affect? Because I'm high energy. I got a lot to give. I am a teacher. I want to serve. How does that manifest? Because what I was turning away from, I didn't have all those components figured out, Dan. You can't serve if you don't know what you're aligned with. You can't serve well if you're faking it. You can't, you get in your own way, as one of my friends would say. And so, so I realized it was human connection. And then that very next instant, I thought, okay, so what is it? How am I going to teach it? What is going to be the answer to the terrible all-American question, which another pro tip, don't ask people what they do. Well, I knew it was going to come. So how do I explain that? Well, and then that's why I wrote the book, The Connectivity Canon. So I wrote it right away. So I was super duper crystal clear on what it is that it meant to me. And then in that book writing process, turning it into something that's useful for other people. And that was the game changer. I wrote it for 2 reasons. I wrote it so I was really clear on my message so people could use the message. And then I wrote it to leverage for my business. I love business. I love having my own business. Yeah. And I love to work. I want to become I'm on my way to being a wealthy woman. And that's because I'm very intentional. And I think wealth is the word, not greed, not money. Wealth is multifaceted. And I already know what my legacy is, Dan. I want to leave a library and that's not going to happen free. So I want to make that money so I can build my future, so I can give back, so I can, my fine husband who I adore can do whatever the heck he wants that makes him happy. And like it or not, money is a tool. And the more of that tool we have, first of all, there's plenty for everybody. Second of all, the more of it we have, as long as we're not in a greed mindset, the more opportunity we have to give, to enrich, to enhance. And that I am very connected with that.
Look, first of all, you've just said so many things that we're going to maybe keep coming back to.
Okay.
Unless we don't, but we might. But where you ended on that, talking about wealth, and look, I'm in 100% agreement that there's nothing wrong with wealth. Wealth is something that, is certainly as good a driver as any in your life. But it's a shame that so many in society kind of puts this kind of stink on wealth, and I don't get that. I'm honest. Let me just put that out there. But but the more important part of that is not the wealth part; it's the abundance part. It's that if you believe in abundance, then you should never have a problem with wealth. You may never get materially wealthy. You may never have the bank account, or you may, however your finances end up. But you should, if you believe in abundance, then anyone else who is getting wealthy in whatever way they get wealthy, should be a pleasure to you.
Right.
It's a proof of abundance. I am a big abundance person. Excellent. I think the zero-sum game is the only thing that there's a zero-sum game in probably is time. I mean, all of our other assets are pretty much
Mm.
resources are fairly, abundant. And
Mm-hmm.
if you approach your why,
Mm-hmm.
right, to get back to where you were with with a mindset of abundance, either you're going to find something that you'll have this kind of convergence of thought that will open up some amazing possibilities to you, or you're going to drive yourself batty because you won't be able. You'll be like, "Holy moly, there's so much to do!"
Right.
But it's a really, I think once you're open to abundance, the universe speaks to you,
I would agree.
and without getting without getting any woo woo going on here.
Hey,
But
woo is good.
Yeah.
Woo's a real thing. And I live in Oregon. I didn't know it was existed. I grew up in the Midwest. Like, there's not a lot of woo going on there. We call it something different though, Dan, right? We call it
Yeah.
fate. We call it other things. And
Yeah.
I like how you've aligned wealth and abundance. One of my good friends, Eric, in London, he says, Ginger, I want to live where the intersection of doing what I like or love meets the wealth. Like, that's
Oh, yeah.
a really good visual. Don't do this. Don't pull this cop out baloney of, oh, do what you love and you never work a day in your life. I think that's a crappy, like that. You're doing somebody a disservice if you tell them that,
Mhm.
like, because you still need to function productively for yourself, never mind society. And it's not a pressure thing. I totally agree with you. There is always more for those who wish to find it, to those who
Yeah.
wish to apply yourself. It doesn't mean it's magic. That's called hard work. That's muscle.
Yep.
That's sweat. It's certainly available.
Yep, totally. And it takes a lot to figure that out, I think.
Mm.
Well, I mean, maybe some people get it right away. I don't know. I keep doubling back on my own statements, which doesn't make me sound very credible. But to just bring it to your super tanker, metaphor there, right? I mean, well, first of all, even calling it a super tanker indicates, that you think big, which is awesome,
Oh.
and I like that. But also, I find it also curious you use the super tanker analogy and not the battleship, because the battleship is what I always hear. It's like turn it around a battleship. It's like turn it around a
Oh,
battleship.
interesting.
Everyone's like turn it around
You're
a
the first
battleship.
person to bring that up.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
but I like super tanker a lot better, and I'm going to adopt that
You
because
go right ahead.
super tanker is a much more peaceful boat, as it were.
An aircraft carrier would be even better, right? Because then
Oh, man.
like we're taking off, we're coming down, like that's our perch.
Massive. But
Yeah.
the idea is that it's just hard to turn something around once you're on a path. And as you're turning it, you are going through this very,
Yeah.
very gigantic pivot.
Yeah, and it's
Right.
interesting. It's depending on what you're driving, right? So to me, our lives are big, and we get one. And if you're Shirley MacLaine, great, good for you. If you're not, then if you get that joke, you're of a certain age. Anyway,
Yeah, we're
like
a
my
little
Jeep
dated here.
Wrangler, that turns on a dime. Well,
Mhm.
that's a different turn. If you really, we don't want to overthink this. We don't want to think, oh, I have such a large super tanker, I'm never going to turn it. No, that's on you. At the same time, just start turning it, or
Yeah.
get a different ship.
Yeah, and I guess we all have that super tanker going on, and that moment where you stuck your head up and
Mhm.
said,
Oh,
connection. For me, going, this past year-ish, and on, I guess at various times before then, I would stick my head up and hear it or see it, and I wouldn't notice it until in the past. But this past
Mhm.
year, I think that, connection, I always heard that whisper in the wind too, the connection, connect, and that comes from my dad and a lot of different things. But this time around, I heard create,
Ooh.
creativity. So I've been on this kind of mission of this creative mission since last year. The podcast is the first kind of iteration of that. And, I've tried to bring that to bear in my work as well. And when, luckily I'm in communications and get to do a lot of creative stuff, but I've learned over the past year, I can have both things. I can pursue creativity. I can help others, serve others, and help them be creative too. And I can bring that to work, to my team, to my colleagues, to my friends, because everybody needs a little dab of creativity in their lives on a day-to-day basis, I think.
I'm so glad you brought this up, Dan, because everybody is creative.
Yeah.
Everybody. So if you're shaking your head or if you're talking back to this podcast, say, I'm not, you're not Okay, how do I say this nicely? You need to rethink this.
Yeah.
Because as a former, I was a former art teacher, middle school. And I
Mhm.
remember one day, Dan, I get all the classes, and I had my fifth through eighth. I love middle schoolers. You're welcome. I love middle schoolers. They're bonkers. I get them. And one day, fresh squad of, I think they were eighth graders, seventh graders, eighth graders. A young boy named Josh walking through my door, and I'm greeting everybody at my door. I loved teaching middle school art and greeting all the students. And he said, before I even greeted him, he says, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know how to draw. And I had two instant reactions to that, Dan. You'll appreciate this with the creative juice going in your head. And I had two reactions. The first reaction was, where does that come from? Who has told him he's not? How does he come
Yeah.
to believe this? What is the environmental impact? What are the voices he's listening to, his others? Where is that coming from? And then the immediate second reaction was, I'm going to help him change his mind. Because I know, you know this. Inherently, we are incredibly creative creatures. I mean, look at what we've accomplished in this really condensed time frame. Like some people call it forced creativity. I don't. I call it an awakening.
Mhm.
Oh, of course I'm capable. I was complacent before. I was listening to the wrong voices before. I wasn't
Yeah.
really thinking about me and how I'm so powerful as this amazing species. And so I had a great semester with him, and he started to, I think he was pretty high strung. I think his life at home was not a great challenge.
Sure.
And sadly, that happens too much. At the same time, my goal as his teacher was for that 50 minutes that we spent together to let him be completely him.
Mhm.
He became more relaxed. He looked forward to the class. Because to me, as an art teacher, I don't care about the product. I care about the process. I care about the fact that you're going through this thing, that your hands are getting dirty, that you're trying something new, that you're
Yeah.
letting yourself think about your life in a different way. Oh, look, I have a super tanker. I don't have a dinghy. I'm pretty darn amazing. And I saw that over and over with my kids. I loved it. And so I'm so glad you bring up that creativity, because
Yeah.
that's what I call a superpower. We all have it. We simply need to figure out how to either reawaken it, open up that door again, have somebody say, Dan, I'm struggling with this. Will you help me? And of course, if they're a great connection who really cares about you,
Mhm.
they will try. They will be there for you. Like, I don't know what to do, but just tell me if there's something I can start, somebody I can introduce you to. You want me to send you, what do you need? Because creativity isn't art supplies.
Yeah.
Creativity is so much more. Anyway, I'll stop there with the creativity thing.
No,
That's a
look,
great touchstone.
never have to stop at creativity as far as I'm concerned. I mean, my feeling is that in its simplest sense, creativity is making something that just wasn't there before. Period. So there was nothing, now there's something.
Hmm.
And you can extrapolate that to pretty much anything.
Yep.
So when you think that you're okay, I can't paint, I'm not a creative. Well, then don't paint. Do something different. Do you have an idea today? Guess what? You created that. That nobody else had that idea. That's a construct that happened in your mind.
Yeah.
And if you can bring it to fruition of some kind, or you can
Mhm.
write it down, guess what? You've just created.
Right.
Um, and you know, where I think there's an interesting intersection for our conversation today,
Mhm.
given who you are with your
And who you
with
are.
your unique focus on with your focus on connection, right?
Mhm.
Isn't a connection a creation? Like, isn't isn't creation fundamental to the idea of making a connect? You say I use the word making connection, but connecting. Like, where do you see them connected? Where do you see creativity and connection connected? That's a tip, bro. That's a good way to say it.
This is a fantastic conversation. Nobody has expressly asked me how creativity and connection are interwoven, and
Hmm.
they absolutely are. So, for example, when I started writing about connectivity, connection for the Canon, I here it is right here. I don't know if the
Yeah.
audience can see it, but what ended up happening was I created, of
Hmm.
course, I created by letting what was in my head come onto paper. And that's a great form of creation. But for the record, everybody who's listening, you can draw. I bet you can pick up a pencil and a marker. You can piece of chalk, like that's drawing. What you're
Yep.
thinking of is you're not Helen Frankenthaler. You're not Frida Kahlo. Get rid of that. You're you. So the intersection, I love that, the interesting intersection. I'm going to use that, Dan. That's going to become my Dan saying.
You own it now. Sure.
Yeah. The interesting intersection is that, yes, we do create when we connect, because every connection is a new experience. Every connection is truly unique, because we are all incredibly unique creatures, even though we're of the same species. We're of the same race. And the beauty and the excitement, and sometimes the enthrall, and sometimes the anxiety of connecting, comes from that thought, probably subconsciously, that, oh, I have to create something from scratch. I have to start a conversation. Well, one of the things I teach in the book, and I teach audiences and teams and leaders and so forth, is shift your language. Here's another pro tactic. Shift your language from have to and should to get to want to.
Absolutely.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. When we frame it, oh, I get to start a conversation with this guy in the purple sweater in front of me in the line of the coffee shop. I want to meet somebody new. When we get in that frame of mind, when that's our mindset, which is a fundamental characteristic, attribute, practice of connectors, then we're halfway there. We're actually probably 75% of the way there, because we've gotten our own momentum up within ourselves, within our person and our mind, what I call the trifecta of the head, the heart, and the guts. Those all need to be their own symphony, because when we let those three things guide us, we're doing pretty good. We've all, we've heard, Dan, and we've both made decisions, I'm sure, like, oh, I made it, I thought with my head, or we say, my heart was telling me to do this, or my gut says this. It's the popular parlance, right? Well, there's a reason our physiology guides so much, because our brain, our guts, our heart, a lot smarter than us. Collectively, we need them working together, because that guides us forward. So the fear that may be in a connecting point, an opportunity, a first contact, as I call it.
Yeah.
We replace that with an anticipation, which is the second part of the human connection change model as I teach it. Then, we may still have some trepidation. We may still, and we probably do still feel some different emotions. And the driving emotion is positive excitement. Because excitement, like Simon Sinek says, turbulence in a plane can be exciting. It's not initially the exciting we think, but it's not all a joyride. It's excitement by its nature, by its definition, is that something that is exciting change. It's something that's changing rapidly. So the creativity, that interesting intersection, yes, there are going to be some feelings. I still feel them sometimes, Dan, and I feel them, like, I trained myself a long time ago not to get nervous. I don't like being nervous. I get really amped up, and I get excited, and I am anticipatory. I don't get nervous. I literally train myself. I don't like feeling nervous. I've never been a real nervous person anyway. I'm a very enthusiastic person. I didn't start out this way either. So that's also very skills. That's another lesson I teach. Look, anybody who wants to connect can, just like creativity, just like you're saying. Abundance, if you're in a fixed mindset, not a growth mindset, you can change that. That's totally up to you.
Yep.
Totally up to you. Behaviors, personality be damned. We still are such a unique species, in that we are still capable of completely altering what we think, what we believe, what we do, what we see, how we act. We're such remarkable beings. I think we have no idea how truly remarkable we are. Connection can drive that awareness so much further, better, stronger, and excitingly, positively so.
Well, so again, you've just given me a whole bouquet of
welcome to grad school, y'all.
Wow. Everything. I love the way you connected to mindset. I mean, you can see behind me, maybe.
Yes, I love mindset. I want to know what all your books are.
Oh man. But if my listeners could see me, and we don't do video. We can see each other, but they can't see us. There's a very kind of eclectic connection behind me, and I think that in Ginger's answer to my last inquiry, she must have hit on 7 or 8 of those different books in one way or another, inadvertently or directly. It's still, like, it's just incredible, the breadth of like techniques or the breadth of thinking that is involved just in the idea of connections. And that's kind of, I want to zero in on that just a little bit because, you are all about connections. Maybe if we can back it up a little bit and say, what are like, the elements of connections
Sure.
according to you that, you've identified and that people should be like, first of all, aware of?
Sure. Great question, Dan. As I started to write the book, like I said, I wanted to be really clear on my message so people could take a useful message and apply it in their everyday lives. I like tactical things. Tell me how to do the thing and I'll go do the thing. Okay. So one thing that became known, one thing that manifested was the 7 elements of connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the first book. Got another one brewing. Knock on wood, I want to have another one done by the end of this year. So all the same, the elements of connection are the pretty fundamental and they're great. So here they are. You can group them in, it doesn't have to be 7. You can group them in, say, 3 groups. The first 2 in order. The very first thing is your why, your alignment, your purpose. What is it that you want to be in life? Who are you? It's not what you do. You don't ask yourself that question. You could do anything. We're not human doings, we're human beings. You've probably heard that before. And there's a reason that perpetuates. So what do you want your life to look like? It's the classic 3-year question. A lot of coaches ask. It's 3 years from now. You're really happy. What's happened? Oh, yeah. That's your why. That's your purpose come to life. It's your vision. And we literally need to be able to see this, Dan. We need to be able to visualize this. Everybody who's listening, hear me. You have to be able to visualize what you think you want. You don't need to, it doesn't have to be exact. It's not a finished piece of art. You are not. What it needs to be is what can you envision in that? So that why, that alignment, that's the very first thing. The next one that is the sibling, the direct sibling, the fraternal twin with your purpose, your why, your vision is mindset. You literally need to set your mind to the doing, because after these 2, this is the concrete for your foundation of your life. The why and the mindset are the concrete. You've got to set your foundation before you can build. It's a building fact. So those are the first 2 in the 7 elements of connection. Then the next 5, so good, Dan. They are very tactical. So if you're chomping at the bit, like, I don't need any more damn theory. Okay, as long as you get the theory.
Give me.
The 5 tactics then are the first move. You literally make the first move. So if you and I are standing at the post office, I love my post office. I highlight them often. So if you and I are standing in line at the post office, you're in front of me, I might make a comment. That's acceptable. Maybe there's Christmas music on and it's February. Maybe I like your coat. Maybe, we've just gotten snow. Whatever it is, you can open up a safe, pleasant conversation with a first contact. So that's the first thing.
Hey, cool specs like that.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And they are, listeners.
I thank you.
They are.
So finding an affinity or compliment is a phenomenal first contact. It sets person up for success. You're being kind. You're being thoughtful. As long as it's sincere. Don't say you love their Vans if you hate Vans.
Yep.
And so that's the first one, the first contact. The next one is the why in the road. And it's a why, not a fork, because a fork has many tines. The why is you either stay and build or you go on to the next person. So to run this scenario of you and I being in the line post office, I could say, wow, those are great eyeglasses. You could simply say, okay, thank you. And you turn back and I can tell that you're not interested in engaging. Okay, pay attention to that. That's one of those branches on the why. You keep going. There are more than 7.5 billion people on the planet. There will be other opportunities. So that's one of the first moments of anxiety for some people. And they say, well, what if I'm not accepted? Because that's how it feels. It feels like somebody doesn't welcome you. No. They're just, you've extended and they've said, no, thank you in essence. So we need to not mess with our own head and say, okay, I tried. And the trying is the success. There is no failure. I don't believe in that word anyway. There's no failure with attempt.
You reminded me of, in a tangential way, of one of my favorite movies of all time, What About Bob? With Bill Murray.
This is so good.
I love What About Bob? And he says he's being interviewed by somebody. He's like, well, I treat people like, I treat people like a phone call. If they don't like me, it's just a bad connection. I'm totally wrecking this quote, by the way. Like, if it doesn't work out, it's just like a bad connection. I'll just hang up and I can just try again later. Like, he's super, super
Yeah.
positive about it.
Yeah.
No big deal. Just bad connection. We'll try
Right.
again.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And laud yourself for making that attempt, making that call. So if we start engaging, I say, hey, nice eyeglass. Like, oh, hey, thanks. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And you can tell it might go somewhere. And maybe you say, oh, well, tell me, where'd you get yours? Those are kind of cool.
Yeah.
And there's a moment of engagement. And that's the stay versus the go. It's not a stop or go.
Mhm.
You may have noticed I didn't say stop. I said it's a stay and you continue, which gets us to the third piece. Or you go, you keep going. There's somebody else. Again, there's 7 billion other people. So then you've got that first contact, the why in the road. And then the third in this second batch is pursue your path. That's where we could decide that, oh, wow, this person's kind of cool. What do you think about having coffee? What do you think about going for a walk? I'll see
Mhm.
you next time. Like, there's an intent, because intention is huge in connection.
Yeah.
There's an intent to keep my eye up for you around town. I happen to live in a town right now of about 8,000 souls. And so I know quite a few. Yes, it's what I do. It's also who I am. More importantly, I like knowing who I live around. It's
Mhm.
really critical to me. And so there's an intent there of, oh yeah, that was person. Yeah, we'll see you next time. And so
Mhm.
then the next time we see each other, like, oh yeah, hey. So here's a pro tip too. A lot of people tell me, I have a hard time remembering names. Ginger, do you have any tactics or tips? First of all, I don't like the word tip. That reminds me of tri-tip, which makes me hungry, which I'm good with. But a practice is a better way to think about
Mhm.
using something useful. So if you struggle with names, you can write it down. You
Mhm.
can do something like that. You can also, here's a better way to think about it, really. All of us forget a name at some point. All of us. I don't care how good you are at it.
Yep.
I have a real knack for it. But I know it's unusual. At the same time, I don't always remember a name either. So what you can do is you can simply say, gosh, I know you told me your name last time. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Sure.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's this. Because if we sit there and stew and I can't remember their name, I can't remember the name, I can't remember the name,
Mhm.
you're totally missing out on the beautiful opportunity of the conversation. And everybody, everybody, I rarely use that. This is not hyperbole. Everybody forgets a name once in a while. So you can simply
Yes.
say, gosh, I've forgotten your name. Remind me again.
I was just
Easy
gonna.
thing. You don't have to
Yeah.
apologize because we
No.
all have memories. They all fail once in a while. And the person's like, oh yeah, it's Dan. Oh, right. Okay, thanks. And then you make up some sort of like Dan the eyeglass man or something like that.
Well, yes, or it's. I was just going to say that if you ask yourself, have you been angry when somebody forgotten your name?
No, you're
I mean,
flattered.
hey,
Oh, you want to know my
if I've been
name?
hanging out with somebody for like a week and something, and they're
Right.
like yeah, that guy, then I might get a little. But no, but seriously, you meet somebody
Right.
outside, wherever, months go by, days,
Right.
whatever. You go back, you see the person again. You're like, oh yeah, you're the person from such such. Hey, what was your name again? Right?
Right.
Um,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Hey, I really
So
want to talk to you, I do, but you got to tell me your name again first because I'm
right.
sorry, I forgot.
Here's like
Or
a
whatever.
grad level one, right? So my
Mhm.
husband and I will be in places and one of us will see somebody we know. And so we both walk over and say it's you. We see you at a party, and my fine husband, Larry, who I adore, hasn't met you yet. And I see you and I'm like, I'm forgetting his name at this moment. Doesn't stop me. Don't
Yeah,
let it stop you. Go over to the other person anyway. Like, hey, stranger, it's good to see you.
yeah.
And then what you do is, Larry, I don't think you've met this fabulous person yet. And then what Larry does, we're totally in cahoots on this.
Oh yeah, of course.
Larry's like,
Hey, I'm Larry.
hey, I'm Larry. What was your name? And like
That's it.
he does it. And so we
Yeah.
do that for each other. There's nothing bad about that. It's just a clever kind of positively subversive way to make progress.
Always good to have a wingman.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So we've got the why and the mindset are first. You set your frame of mind, you
Mhm.
have the intention. Then you get the first move, the why in the road, and the pursue your path. And then the last segment, Dan, is really, really, really where the gold shows up in the pan,
Mhm.
since we're using so many damn metaphors.
I like that one too. Yep.
And it's FUFT, FUFT.
Okay.
FUFT stands for follow up and follow through. They are twins. They are necessary for people who want to build long lasting, meaningful, deep relationships. And they're both different.
Yeah.
So here's the example. You and I, post office, we decide, oh yeah, we both seem to think like that other person's kind of cool. So let's do that. So then it could be, hey, let's meet tomorrow for coffee. That's a follow-up. The follow-up is the immediate subsequent action.
Yep.
It's a postcard. It's, flowers after you've had a date. It's, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a huge maneuver. It is simply an action that follows that first connection, and you've decided you want to pursue it.
Yeah.
Follow through then is what I call the care and feeding. It is the long-term requirement to build something.
Yeah.
It is the decision of frequency and tempo. And so, for example, right now, when we're recording this in the middle of the pandemic of 2021, a lot of people are struggling with, how do I keep up with the connections I already have? Because we're told more, funnel. My funnel's in my kitchen. Funnel, more, new. I'm going to give you a sword bless on both of your shoulders and say, release that. That's just a mind mess. You're putting pressure on yourself. You don't need to put pressure on.
Yep.
So how do you stay in touch with the people who you already have a relationship of some way, shape, or form with? Well, first of all, clean house. Get rid of the relationships that do not make your house better. And your house is your life, my people. This is the perfect time to let go, to forgive, to remove, to expunge those people who don't add to your life. Now, some people are like, oh, but some of it's my family. Newsflash, everybody has family wonk. I have it. And so what we get to do, we get to do this. We get to decide who we really want in our life. And now is a perfect time to do that. Every day is a perfect time to do that. There's an accelerant right now when we're recording this, in that, okay, I just honestly, people say I don't have time. That's an excuse. Say, I'm not willing to give time to people who don't add to my life. You get to make the choice. Another word nerd thing because words are so important in connecting, Dan, is don't say you can or can't. Those are choice words. Say you will or won't, do or don't. Don't say can or can't. It's a cop-out. If I invite you over for dinner and say, hey, Dan, I really want you to come over, and you say, oh, Ginger, I can't. Like, I'm going to think, he just doesn't want to. It's much, much better to say, gosh, I really enjoy spending time with you. I've already got plans. I'm going to pass this time.
Mm-hmm.
Own it, because it's so much better. If you tell me that, oh, I have a night planned for myself. Great, Dan. If I'm truly a valuable connection to you, somebody who adds to your life, I'm going to support you. And then I might say, come on, man. Okay, well, all right. We'll see you next time. It's just like the name thing that you talked about before.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to chastise you for being direct and honest and respectful. And if they are, you really need to examine that relationship.
I got to say this, that resonates with me a lot, and we will get to point 7, I promise. But that resonates a lot because, I've been a yes man for a lot of my life. If not a yes man, at least deferential or compliant. Or, I was speaking with some of my friends who are also in communications, and we're a service part of the organization. We typically we typically are there to support other functions and to make our executives, look better, but also to convey the message of the company and to protect the company. We're in a very service-oriented position, and as service-oriented people, we often think that means you have to agree or say yes a lot. But what I found, and I've discovered very recently in my life, is that nobody gets upset if you say no in an honest way.
Yes.
They don't get upset. I mean, and if they do, by the way, then you need to find another person to talk to, because, and you're right about this. If you say, geez, I can't, I've got this and that going on, then it sounds like you're just really delaying the coup de grace for no good reason.
Right.
Whereas it'd be much better to say, this weekend I am booked.
Yeah. Oh, right? Okay.
So, yes. Let's talk about another time. But
you're absolutely right. The most respectful way, because we can feel, if you tell me no and I invite you over and I really want you to be there, I will still maybe feel a little bit of, God dang it. At the same time, I'm going to respect your choice. Whereas if you told me, oh, Ginger, I can't, I've got to do this. Because inevitably, if we say we can't, we follow it. We feel like we have to justify it or explain. Yep. You don't have to do that, people. It's your life. Thank you. Next time. Please invite me again. And you never have to apologize for this.
The coolest thing I saw recently, and I'm trying to emulate this, is a connection of mine who I'm not going to name him, but he's just excellent mentor and model for me to follow sometime, for everybody who I think I know follows him. But I asked him recently if he'd be interested in meeting or connecting with another friend of mine, somebody I knew, who I thought would be, would add value to this gentleman's life in some way, or that would be able to bring him some knowledge that he didn't have, because he was talking about a particular topic. I knew somebody who was really involved. I said, so, hey, would you like me to introduce you to so-and-so? And by the way, I never ever do an introduction without asking the person who I'm going to, I won't do it I won't do an introduction unbidden, right? If I know that, one of the parties is sensitive to these things, especially.
It's a pro move. It's excellent, Dan.
You risk putting people in a really bad spot when you make an introduction unbidden. Just something I've learned. But anyway, with this fellow, I said, I know this guy. He understands, he's an expert in this particular field. Would you like to meet him? And didn't take long, maybe an hour later, I got a very polite reply back from this gentleman. He said, Dan, thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm at capacity now, and I'm not taking on any more connections. But I do appreciate your thought.
Absolutely.
End of message.
Right.
And I said, I'm not hurt.
Right.
I was astounded a little bit. I said, okay. So I basically cut and paste that, and I use almost that exact phraseology now, because I'm at capacity.
Yep.
Not today, and it's been helpful.
Yeah, that's excellent. Get rid of the but in there. And I know that was, you're telling me a story.
Yeah.
That's another pro connector. Get rid of but. 99% of the time we don't need it. But is an excuse. It's a dismisser. Thank you. I'm at capacity. Let's circle around again another time. And I'm so glad I'm honored. I'm flattered you thought of me. Yeah. That's a great story. Good for you. Yeah. And use what you see works from other people. And I think we've both seen some really cool ways of communicating and messaging and saying what's on our mind. And when we take something that works from somebody else, then we make it easier on ourselves, quite frankly. And unless it's trademarked, which very little of this kind of stuff is, then use it.
Well, and before we get to step 7, is there a 6A maybe? Because with FUFT, right? With follow up, follow through. Okay. And this is all connected, by the way, to this whole idea that, this whole idea of the funnel, more that you mentioned, which is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And I've gone down that road and I regret it. In some ways I regret it. In other ways, I've met some tremendously amazing people. So very net positive. However, it sent me in a tailspin for a little while. And I could not possibly give the attention to people that they deserved. And I know that for the X number of people that I made great connections with, and that I feel my life is better for, I know that there's 2X, 3X, 5X of those people who I also reached out to, who would be just as great in connections. I just couldn't keep up with it.
Right.
So I know they're just kind of out there in the ether now. And, after that first connection, there was no follow-up, which meant there was no follow-through. And, they're now laying around in my network. Then, well, it's true. Then there's my situation with you, Ginger, where we connected. There was immediate follow-up. We were back and forth by message. But then I went back and looked. I was like, and this was before the new year, and we put it out there in a very, relaxed way. Yeah, let's reconnect in January and touch base and blah, blah, blah. And, what didn't happen? I didn't reconnect with you in January. I didn't do it. I didn't reconnect you in January. Frankly, life is just, I had too much going on, and we hadn't connected in a real authentic way at that point. We had some good correspondence, but I dropped the ball on this. So I messed up the part. I got the right? But not the FT, right? So I didn't
Don't
I
hurt
didn't get the
yourself.
follow through. Now, thankfully, you being you, I mean, we had a plan on the calendar by this
Right.
point. We
Yes.
luckily had scheduled the podcast, and so fate forced my hand a little bit here, or not fate, the calendar did, and I was, oh, Ginger Johnson's coming up, and then we reconnected again. So
Mhm.
I am so glad that I reconnected, and that we're following through now.
Mhm.
But this is clearly, that was my ball to drop, and I dropped it. And yet you're forgiving. So when's it okay for that to happen? And how do you rescue yourself from when you don't do the follow-up or the follow-through?
Well, thank you for sharing that. So, just like forgetting somebody's name, I would have never known, Dan. I would have never known. And so, several things come to mind, just like you said, oh, there's a whole bunch in there. You just unpacked a whole bunch for me too. Like, all
There
right,
you
let's pull this out and let's pull this out. So, first of all, connectors are gracious with themselves. Give yourself some grace. That means giving yourself the latitude, saying, don't hold yourself to certain impossible standards. And that's exactly why, circling to I'm at capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Say that out loud to yourself if you're listening to this right now. I'm at capacity.
That could be
That's
your
right, we can hear you. Yes. Okay, good job. I'm at capacity. Figure out or learn what your capacity is. There's a Dunbar's rule. I don't know if you've heard of that, Dan. Dunbar's rule, Robin Dunbar, is some sort of ologist in the 19th to 20th century, realized in study that we can literally have about 150 meaningful relationships. I'm not talking about your inside ripple. That we have a capacity as a species. And so do you want to be like one of my coach Blair Enns says, do you want to be the casserole dish, which is long and wide and shallow? Or do you want to be the Pilsner glass, which is deep and fulfilling and quenching and refreshing? I'm going for the Pilsner glass.
Oh yeah.
So it's about that time when we're recording this too. So when we think about being gracious with ourselves, deciding what the frequency and the tempo is, which as I referenced earlier, that's a huge player for the follow-up and follow-through. Because if you and I see each other in the post office, maybe our rhythm is that we see each other at the post office.
Mm-hmm.
Another way to think about it is, what is the anticipation of the relationship going to be? What do you anticipate? What do you think you want? Please, please, please don't use the word disappointment. That's such an anvil.
Mm.
And that's crushing on anybody. I don't ever want to hear, Ginger, you've disappointed me. That's a huge word. Don't use that. That's fraught with negativity. Say, I was anticipating, and don't even use expectation. Like think of connection as an agreement. You and I agree that there's something to this and we want to keep it going. So what does that look like? Another way to think about it, Dan, is just like owning up to, gosh, I forgot your name. Oh my goodness. If I got an email from you like, oh, yeah, here I am. One thing I say, some exact words I will say is, Dan, thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
I don't need to explain anything unless I really need to explain something. You don't need to apologize unless you need to apologize. We don't need to do it 99% of the time because the other person, frankly, doesn't care. They're not on your time schedule. They've forgotten about it, or it's not their deal. So don't worry about it. The lesson here is, don't waste your time trying to make a decision to make a decision. Make the decision and say, oh my gosh, I was supposed to follow up with Dan. Dan, here I am. Thanks for your patience. Where do we need to start again? What do we need to pick up?
Yeah.
One of my friends says, the trail's gone cold. Let's start again. I'm like, oh, I like that.
I like that one too. Yeah. I like the trail's gone cold. Yeah.
Or I'll once in a while, if I truly have dropped the ball, I'll say, oh my gosh, Dan, I'm so sorry. Thank you for your patience. This one's on me. Let's jump into it again.
Yeah.
Don't dwell on the negativity. Don't make yourself feel bad because first of all, that's contagious and that we don't need that kind of contagion. Just say, oh, okay. Yeah. It's like a toddler. They fall, they bawl, they get up. Like, so what? Keep going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a great way to look at it. And and by the way, thanks for being gracious. But you're right. Yeah, it's oftentimes I think it's just it's so much. It's just in the eye of the beholder. In
judgment is in the eye of in our inner eye, so to speak. Stop it.
Yeah, and it's everything everything in it. A catastrophe to you is nothing but a mote of dust floating in the wind to another.
Right.
So The point is, though, that, you just, we reconnected.
Mhm.
Everything is, you know, right back on track
Mhm.
or on track. Maybe it was never
Mhm.
off track,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
It's on track.
Right.
And, we're having a great time.
Right.
So I was very curious about that particular
Mhm.
point. But now we're back to the list. So
Okay.
so we did FUFT
So
and
follow up is that immediate action.
mhm,
Follow through then is that long-term view.
yep.
And whatever that is. And a couple examples, I think we all have friends or
Mhm,
relationships where we literally don't see each other for years.
yeah.
And then we pick right back up where those are such fun friendships, aren't they, Dan?
That's my college boys, right? That's the way it is.
It's
Yeah.
there's so many things. I was talking with a
Mhm,
long time trade show pro yesterday, and I said, Michelle, what's going on? And she's like, yeah, this is really hard, and so forth and so on. And like, well, tell me more about that. She says, I miss seeing people once a year. And
hmm,
like, okay, it's a circuit. It's a rhythm. It's the tempo. It's the frequency. You don't see that person for a year, yet you get to see that person once a year. Like there's
yeah.
something real to that. Depth of relationship does not necessarily correlate immediately with frequency. You decide
Right.
what you want the depth to be with the frequency you want. It's an XY axis. Again, it's the chart with what's going up and what's going across. What do you want that to be? I remember when I was doing Women Enjoying Beer, my previous business pursuit, and I literally hit the beer festival circuit.
Mhm,
And I loved going back to the same festivals, Dan, year over year because of what this person said. Like, I get to see Dan who's in security. I get to see the vendor who sells the mini donuts. I get to see, and oh, by the way, I'm going to see him at the next show
mhm,
because there are different circuits. It's like Saturn's rings. We might be going around at different paces, yet we see each other. And that's one of the most joyful parts of connection, Dan. If you plug into the possibility, like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to get to see that person, that shifts to the get to want to,
mhm,
as opposed to, oh, I bet they're not going to be here. Stop it with the negative crap.
yeah.
Stop talking to yourself that way.
Yep.
Nobody wants to hear it. It's just a self-complaining. So that follow through then is the magic of what you choose it to be. We all have people in our lives
Mhm,
where we feel like, God, it'd be great to reconnect with them. Now is your moment. If you're listening to this, whenever you are listening to this, my friends, reconnect today. Here's your challenge. I love giving people challenges. Reconnect today with somebody who pops into your mind and it makes you smile. Call them up, preferably. That's the best way to do it. Call them up, text them, email them, say, gosh, Dan, you're on my mind. It's been a long time. Would love to know what you're up to. The reconnect is about them. It's not about you. You don't vomit what you've been up to.
mhm,
You say, oh, God, Dan, I'd love to know what you're up to. Let me know if you're up for a phone call. Give them a graceful space because maybe they're not in that space anymore. Maybe their priorities have changed, maybe whatever. 90 some percent of the time, very unscientific yet from experience, people say, oh my gosh, it would be great to catch up. Or
yeah.
wow, I haven't thought about this for years. Because if it makes you smile, it probably was a positive experience.
Yeah.
And there is you make people's years if you reconnect with somebody who meant something at some time. And now, today, I don't care if pandemic, no pandemic, doesn't matter. Do that. Do yourself a favor. Do it monthly, do it weekly, whatever your rhythm is. First of all, it will enrich your life. It will make you happy. These are things, and this is going back to that point, Dan, of
Mhm,
deepening and going back to the well, the same well. You don't have to always be digging new wells. Don't go for the more funnel,
mhm,
new. Go back to the ones that are like, oh wow, the water in that one was pretty darn sweet. I'd really like to go back to that one. I only tried that one once, whatever it is, because people are waiting for that connection. We want to be
yeah.
seen. We want to know we're valued, that we are remembered.
Jordan Harbinger, who is like podcaster extraordinaire. He's a legend. And he has this thing called 6-minute networking, I think it's what it's called. And it's like a course you can just sign up, it's free. And he just like you go through this thing every day for however many days. I've just started it. And one of the early exercises he has is you go to your phone, not your mess inbox, it's your
Right.
phone.
Not your laptop.
You go
Right.
to your
Mhm.
texts and you just scroll as far as you can scroll up, right? To the bottom texts. Like the ones that were from maybe a year ago, 2 years ago. Depends on how long you've had your phone.
Like clean your phone
Right.
out, people.
Right? So if you don't clean out your phone, and if you just
Right.
keep your texts, this works really well. If you clean out your phone every month, this is not going to work that well.
Go to your
But-
contacts.
Go to your contact, but you go to your texts, because this shows like who you've been, and you go all the way down. You're like, shoot, I haven't been in touch with this person in 2 years.
Right.
Immediately text that person.
Right.
Text them, hey, how you doing?
Right.
Just want to see what you're up to.
Yep.
That's it. So you can find these people to reconnect with in all different places,
Yes.
and it doesn't have to be your phone, but it's just a great example of almost how to make it into a game and challenge yourself to like look at people who you haven't seen. Like I'll scroll down on my phone right now and I'll see people who worked for previous companies and I haven't talked to in ages and ages and ages. And it's a good opportunity to do that.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, what was number 7?
Follow through.
Oh, follow through.
7. Yep.
So wait, 6 and 7. 6 is follow up, 7 is follow through.
Correct.
Okay. FUFT is 2 things.
Yes. Follow up and
Oh.
follow through. You need both. Because if we only follow up is the equivalent of we go to an event, we collect the business cards, and we put them in a desk drawer. We put them on a shelf. We come back to them. We've forgotten them. We don't follow up. People will say, here's again, get rid of the negative self-talk. Oh, I'm so bad at that. Don't say that. You are not allowed to say that anymore, ever, on anything. Say, I'd like to get better. I'm working on that. Also, ditch it if you don't want to get better at it. Don't focus on your non-strengths, I'll call them. Focus on the stuff you're really good at. So that's the same kind of idea, Dan. Like, who have I interacted with before? I'll tell audiences, does everybody have a memory of collecting business cards and then putting them somewhere and forgetting? Every single hand goes up, of course, right? Exactly. Yes, I see your hand.
Yep.
Mine will go up right here too. So what do you do when you find those 3 years later? You're cleaning out your desk drawer. You're feeling around for something that rolled back there or you're moving or whatever it is. What do you do with those? People will have a reaction of being embarrassed. Please don't be embarrassed. We are human. We are fallible creatures, which means we also have opportunities coming out the Toolie Whackers. So what you do with those cards is you take them and you make some phone calls. People look at me like I have 3 heads. No, I only have one. I do have a mohawk. So if you want to stare at that, go ahead. But really pick up those cards and look at them. Have a moment that you laugh at. You're just like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about these. Okay, great. What a perfect excuse. What a perfect reason to reconnect. You pick one up like, okay, woo, okay. Breathe if you need to and pick up the phone like, hey, Dan, this is Ginger. We met 3 years ago at the chamber event. I remember that we had a great conversation and would love to know what you're up to. Now, Dan's going to have 1 or 2 reactions. He's going to be like, who is this? Like, I know it was 3 years ago. Maybe don't remember. And it's cool if this is not a conversation you want to have. I simply remember that we had a great conversation. We were at First National Bank of, Timbuktu. And I kind of remember that event. And here's another pro practice. Take notes. However you take notes. I prefer to take notes, pen and paper. Business cards, I hope they are around forever because that's a gold little piece of wonderful. Like I write notes on the business card. I'll write it right in front of the person. If you tell me something fun, I'll write down, your cat's name or a blue sweater or something that helps us jog. Chamber event. I always do that. And so do that. And here's the grad level pro tip on that. Business cards, don't make them slippery and don't make them black. You can't write on them and you can't see on them if they're that way. I have a round business card. My round business, I know you can't see this because you're listening, but my business card is round like my logo is behind me here, Dan. And people comment
So
on
it stands out.
And it's I'm an art person and the touch of the paper is powerful. So those are some, if you want to remember people's names and who they were, when you find that stack of business cards, whether it's 2 or 3 or 30, go ahead and call them. Here's another pro tip. If you're in the connector's frame of mind and you run across these cards and you say, okay, I'm going to call. You work up your muster and you call. Even if you leave a voicemail, you have made a positive impact in somebody's day because you have remembered them.
Yeah.
We all want to belong. That's the third piece of the change model for human connection. It's the alignment, the anticipation, and the belonging. We all want to feel like we belong, whether it's with one other person or it's a cast of thousands. There's a reason sports teams are so, there's a reason concerts, there's a reason that big groups of people are big groups of people. We want to be part of the herd in moments. We get to decide the size of our herd. do those kinds of things. I guarantee you start making phone calls, you'll get momentum. Like, wow, this is fun. Decide what your message is beforehand. There's another super connector tip. I'm going to say, oh, Dan, I haven't seen you for a while. Would love to know what you're up to. Give me a call back in the next month. Now, if you're in business, here's what you need to bookend it. Hey, Dan, we haven't talked for a while. I know we've got that thing we're talking about. Call me in the next week, or I will call you again next Monday. Let's keep this going. Never, never, never say, did you get my 13 other voicemails? Guilt is not in the connectors vernacular. It's simply pretending that it's fresh every time. Hey, Dan, checking up on you, making sure you're okay. Call me back when you have time.
Yeah. And I never get upset with those kinds of phone calls. I mean, some people do, some people don't want to get called, but you can treat them just like a bad connection, hang up and try somebody else again. Like obviously if it's a business card you haven't talked to in 3 years, it's probably not going to affect you too much if they don't necessarily want to speak with you right away.
And then that's where you also are respectfully direct. Hey, Dan, I really appreciate that. I'm not interested. Thanks for calling.
Yeah.
I'm going to save you some time. Pass. Have a great day.
But if it's just for connecting, like if you're not there for business, if it is simply because you are truly interested in what is happening to this person, it's going to be very difficult for that thing to go wrong, right? It's always nice to hear from somebody who wants to hear from you. And, at least that's the way I feel about things. I hope that most people do as well. But, sadly, there's one thing that, I have to say no to right now. And that is I have to say no to continuing this podcast much longer because we got to go. It's time for us to wind down. There are so many other things I wanted to cover with you, and we'll have to reserve those for another conversation, right. Ginger. But this was amazing. All the tips on connecting that we think that we got it, right? We think that, I'm on LinkedIn. I can connect with people. I know what's going on. But it's nice to have a framework. It's nice to have a method. It's nice to have steps to go back to. Right. And they work, and they work. Now, Ginger Johnson is to be found at gingerjohnson.com.
Correct.
And you can also find her on LinkedIn. Just look for her name. It'll be spelled properly in the episode title. Mm-hmm. Her book, The Connectivity Canon, is available. Can you get it at Amazon?
Negative. Gingerjohnson.com.
Available through gingerjohnson.com.
Yep.
And there's videos out there. There's
YouTube
writings.
Channel, LinkedIn, Twitter. Yes,
yep.
I'm available for workshops, and I'm seeking great long-term clients who want to have their chief connecting officer, where I can come in and support you with what you do with your teams to really build the robust and meaningful connections you really want.
I have no doubt that Ginger can build connections not only for herself but for you too, because she's a delight.
You got us started, Dan. I mean, thanks for doing this.
Well, we've had a great time, and
yes.
And like I said, folks, this is the first time I've sat down with Ginger for a conversation, apart from text and email messages. This is the real deal.
Yes.
And I'm just like I can't wait for the next time. So Ginger, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and being on the show.
Oh, Dan, it's a pure pleasure. I'm looking forward to the next time. Let's keep this going. We'll keep our FUFT active, and I'll look forward to when we can be in person.
You got it. If you enjoyed this episode of The Dan Nessel Show, please head on over to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or the podcast player of your choice to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And please don't forget to spread the word. Thanks for listening.